Hey y'all, Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today. Here's the big $1,000,000 question. Do y'all know anybody who would put a lanyard like this on their Microtech Stitch? If you didn't before, you do now. And some of you have been with me for a while will probably know who is guilty of this right here. I assure you it is not me. Yep, this is another one from our buddy John, longtime friend and supporter of the channel, sent us all kinds of knives to review. This is how I originally met John, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 months ago at some point. I had done a video on my own Microtech Stitch. I had the carbon fiber one. We'll take another look at this here in just a minute. And I was going through the knife doing my review, and I get to the lanyard part here, and I say, yeah, it's got a little lanyard hole back there, kind of hidden, but, you know, I don't know anybody who would put a lanyard on a stitch. That would be kind of weird. And some strange dude pops up in the comments down below and says, hey, I put a lanyard on my stitch. I'm like, no, you didn't, man. I was giving him hell. No, you did not. He said, no, really, I put a lanyard on my stitch. I'm like, dude, send me a picture. I want to see that. And you know what? He did one better. He sent me the whole darn knife. So here we go. We're going to take a look at my buddy John's Microtech Stitch. If you haven't already seen these or haven't been around in the last little while, and of course it depends on when I decide to post these videos. I'm doing a marathon video recording day here. And so I'm going through these in a speed dating format. We're going to pick up the speed despite the fact that I still haven't even got to the meat of this review yet. So I'd really love to hear down in the comments what you guys think about this whole speed dating version of my knife reviews. Let's go. Let's rock and roll. If you haven't already subscribed, by the way, hit that subscribe notification bell. Y'all hit the thumbs up button now for me, please, because I know you're going to leave my video early and you're going to forget to do it, and I really need that help, so please help your buddy out. Thank you so much. Join our little dark corner of the web if you're not already subscribed. Box that it came in looks pretty good, like a true Microtech Stitch probably might come in. It says this is a 2019, if you can see that. 25 years of innovation. They've done a pretty good job. You know, China does such a good job of knocking all this stuff off that these replicas are really hard to tell. You just have to kind of know knives. There's not an average Joe on the street who's not like a knife nut who would probably be able to tell much of a difference. I don't even know what the real boxes look like and if they look any different than this. But anyhow, this is the box it came in because I always like to show you the box. Let's do some size comps because that's always important too. My traditional standbys are the PM2 and the Para 3. Now you ought to be getting a sense of the size of this thing. This bad boy is bigger than everything. This is a big old knife. Bigger than those two. I'll throw a couple more up here just for fun. Spartan 𝗕𝗂𝗃 Plague Doctor 4-inch folder. Man, that's such a mouthful. I think this may have it beat by a fraction. Yep, by a fraction of an inch. You know, the perspective of this camera is at a little bit of an angle, so it makes things in front look larger than the things behind. So when I put it back here, you can see it doesn't look as big. But yeah, okay, this has got it beat just a little bit. And then, of course, the little bitty Rosie doesn't even hold a candle to it. But maybe that'll help you guys. And here from my guy who said, hey, put it on a dollar bill because everybody has a dollar bill. They can compare it to the size of their knives. Does that help you guys get a better sense of how this knife fits? Let me know that down in the comments, please, if you like the old dollar bill comparison. All right, bringing up the specs over on the left-hand side of the screen. If I haven't already mentioned it, I probably should have. You probably got the message. This is a replica version of this knife. As you can see down at the bottom of the list, my buddy John paid about 28 bucks for this thing. This is the G10 variant. I had the carbon fiber one. We'll take a look at those in a minute. Full open length on these things is just over 8.5 inches, 8.55. This is true to form. 3.71 inches total length, but you got a big finger choil here, so you're really at about 3.1 inches on the cutting length. 5-inch long handle that is going to accommodate hands of pretty much any size that you can imagine. Handle thickness, a little bit thinner than the original, but these are contoured scales, so, you know, maybe that varies from knife to knife. But a little over, you know, a ½ inch basically, and less than 6/10 of an inch. Fills out the hand nicely, definitely not too big. Nobody's going to hold this and say, oh, that's too big for me to carry. Certainly not in the width department anyhow. Stonewash blade, as one might expect. This is a partial flat grind. It's not hollow ground or anything like that. The scales, as mentioned, are made of G10. They're nicely done. You got to give them credit on that. Nicely contoured G10. They did a good job. The real one comes in an M390 MK steel. We can be quite certain that for $28, this is not a real M390MK. I'm going to guess maybe an 8CR, 9CR. It did come really screaming sharp, so pretty happy about that. The weight on this is a little bit heavier than the original at just a hair over 6 ounces. You know, this is a big, full-size, beefy knife, so it is what you would expect. It does have what they call the RAM lock, which is a different model or different version entirely than an axis lock. We'll talk about that in just a second. I always like to measure behind the edge for you guys because this is such a short, stubby, like partial flat grind with a relatively thick blade. I skipped right over that. 170 thousandths. So definitely on the thicker side, but look at the thickness of the original one, 190 thousandths. That's a big, heavy-duty blade. I'm glad this is a little bit thinner at 170. Anyhow, behind the edge on this, 28 thousandths, a little bit on the thicker side, but that's what you get, and we'll see how this thing cuts here in just a minute. All right, let's keep on trucking. I'm going to take a little bit of a closer look here. We already talked about the handle in pretty good detail. This actually does have a good bit of grip to it, so it's not like so perfectly smooth. Let me see if I can do a little zoom in here with some light action. The way they've cut this and ground it, there's texture to this G10 that does give you some grippiness on here. So they did a really good job on that. There is no steel liners. It's just solid chunks of, let's zoom back out again, solid chunks of G10 all the way through. You got this big steel back spacer here in the back. Balance point's going to be back a little bit on this thing, not terribly so. You can see behind the pivot, that's actually where probably most knives balance. So it feels pretty well balanced in the hand, especially when you get choked forward into this with this harpoon blade. That's really, it feels awesome actually to hold it right here. Pretty darn cool. The pocket clip is pretty true to the original one. Big, fat, wide, beefy thing. Didn't really need to be that way, but the whole knife is overbuilt. So, you know, of course, you're going to overbuild your pocket clip too. It does sit up really high on there. That's going to catch and poke on things. Might even scratch your car door, so make sure you stay away from that. Anything that you don't want to scratch. But otherwise, tension is pretty good. A little on the stiff side, but, you know, that'll slide in and out over just about any kind of pocket. Obviously, it is not full deep carry, but pretty darn close. And, of course, you got this big old dog leash sticking off the end of it that you can always grab to pull out of your pocket. It is a right-hand carry only. Unfortunate on that, but also the same thing I got with mine on the carbon fiber. So I want to say that I thought they had started making these that could come in left-hand carry too, that could be reversible. Y'all let me know down in the comments if you have seen that. I'm curious to know about that. Action on this is actually really good. You gotta love that because this is a big, heavy, beefy blade. It is a guillotine, which means keep your fingers out of that pathway because a sharp blade like this will pretty much take the tips of your fingers off. So this is not for the inexperienced or weak of heart. Nice and smooth. These RAM locks do a really good job. It locks it in. However, I will tell you they do have a relatively fatal flaw, and I've now heard from a lot of other people who have bought these as well. You can blade whack these hard enough. I'm not going to do it to my buddies because I don't want to, you know, like grind away or make his any more fragile to it. But if you spine whack these hard enough, it will break out of that lock mechanism. And it's because the edge of the tang of the blade there is round where it now engages with the lock, and on the bottom edge of the lock is rounded off. Doesn't make sense why they wouldn't have put a sharper edge on both the tang and the bottom side of the lock so it had a good 90-degree solid lockup. I don't know why they did that. Maybe y'all can tell me why they did that. At any rate, it's not going to, you know, unless you hit it really hard, it's not going to break free. So just common use, regular, normal knife use, you probably shouldn't have a problem with that, but just bringing it to your attention so that you know it. The detent is non-existent because this is one of those axis lock type of spring lock. Though this doesn't have any Omega springs, in case you've never seen what these are before. This has literally a coiled spring on a rod and when you pull the handle back, it just simply compresses that spring, and then the spring pushes it back out to engage the lock on the tang of the blade there. So good design. It actually works pretty well. They've got it dialed in really nicely. These are well known to be very solid knives with good action on them. Big beefy stop pin up here. And then on the bottom side, what are we hitting to stop this thing here? I have no idea what we're hitting. Are we coming back into contact? Wish I had a flashlight that worked. This could be a problem if this blade is locking up. I'm worried that my sharpening choil might get hit if you sharpen this too many times. But I mean, you can see this thickens up pretty thick. Although it's got a big giant choil, it gets thick really fast. So you're going to struggle to do too many sharpenings on this knife. But again, for what we paid for them, you know, I'm not really complaining about that a whole lot. Blade shape is really where that's at. This is such a unique knife. I mean, that's the big thing about these knives, is just a really cool, aggressive, mean, vicious looking design. It's a little too big for my liking for like an EDC type of blade. Like, this is way overkill just to pull out to open your Amazon boxes. But, you know, if you needed a good self-defense blade and you had to pull this out and defend yourself with it, just the look of this knife alone would probably scare most people away. They'd be like, oh man, I am not tangling with that. I don't know what that thing is, but it looks mean. And that it does. Does have an actually nice low center line. You'll notice the whole thing is rounded off and that center line drops down, and because of that choil you can grab it right here in what I'm going to call my version of a pinch cut, and you have excellent control over this knife. You don't even have to lift very high off of the table in order to get to those draw cuts and open your Amazon boxes like that. So really good on the ergonomics all the way around. This thing is well known for that. You can choke all the way back here, get that thumb fully extended. You've got a lot of good pressure you can put into things. If I'm cutting my wood, man, right here, this is all day long comfort. And that pocket clip isn't really poking me that bad either. But of course, you can then choke up on this bad boy and get even lots more delicate cuts. While I've got it in that position, I have not sharpened this. This is the factory edge that came on this thing. And I'm going to tell you, they put an incredible factory edge. I think he said he got this from OK Knives. And that may explain why it has a pretty good edge. Most of OK Knives knives have pretty good edges that come on them. They tend to buy and resell the better quality replicas. But this thing, for as thick and beefy of a knife as this is a laser beam. This is an easy 10 out of 10 all day long. Shocking how sharp this knife came, and that's why I say watch your fingertips, because this big heavy blade coming down like that will take them off. All right, I think I've hit just about everything. The branding on this is true to form. It's actually what you get from the original. T20 on the pivot screw, didn't mention that. T8 on the body screws and pocket clip. So yeehaw for that. We all have been asking for. Clearly has a lanyard hole for your dog leash that you want to carry it on. Any negatives? You know, the steel may be soft. I don't know. I haven't even touched this steel to sharpen it or anything. I have no idea. We'll see. I'm going to run it through the test. John sent this specifically, he said, so I want you to take mine and put it through the cutting test. So we're going to put it through the cutting test, see how that edge holds up. Anything short of that, the only other negatives is that it's probably a little too big for most people to want to carry this on a daily basis. It's you know, big and heavy. It takes up a lot of space in your pocket. That's the only downside. But again, you're wearing a nice full pair of pants or work pants, jeans, what have you. You want something that looks cool. This is a conversation piece. This is like, everybody should have one of these in their collection. And I got it, you know, even the replica version, because I didn't want to spend a lot of money for a knife that I'm not going to carry and use all that much just because of the size. But it's so cool. It's such an iconic looking knife in the knife industry. Anybody who's been around the knife industry for the last few years will immediately recognize and know what this knife is when you pull it out. Where, you know, a lot of knives may look the same. This thing is iconic in every way, shape, or form. So that's why I'm really glad to have it in my collection. And I'm guessing that just about anybody else would too, especially for the under $30 that this costs. All right, y'all. 14 minutes and we are done with this review. Before you leave, if you would throw me a thumbs up if you're not already subscribed. Maybe now you're willing to join our little band of renegades. I don't know. Maybe this is better than asking you at the beginning of the video. Anyhow, I appreciate all you guys. Love to hear from you down in the comments. Make sure you turn the lights out. Last man out. Talk to you guys soon. See ya.